Welcome to West USA Weekly, the podcast, your go-to source for everything real estate in Phoenix, Arizona. We're breaking down market trends, local insights, and the moves that matter most to Valley agents. Interviews, tips, and the latest from one of Arizona's top brokerages, all in one place. Let's dive in.
Good morning, West USA. Welcome to another edition of our Monday morning podcast. Nick, I want to start the podcast. Huge shout out to Haley Herlock, who this morning was trying to teach me how to turn on the laminating machine. Nick, I don't know if there's anyone else at West USA that knows how to use that laminating machine like I do.
It's a problem that you're not supposed to show him things like that, Haley.
No, I could do a YouTube video on how to use that thing.
You've used it more than any other person that has ever worked at West USA.
I think if I put it in my office, nobody would know that it was missing. Anyways, all right, little sneak peek of what we got coming up today. Of course, we've got Todd Bernard here to give us a look at the numbers. We got Justin Frederick with the Frederick team going to give us our mortgage minute. And I'm going to share 3 open house tips. A couple of them might be a little bit of review, but one of them I can guarantee you probably haven't heard of or thought of. And then Duane Fouts is our designated broker.
I
almost gave him a demotion. The big cheese, El Jefe.
He probably prefers to be known as a managing broker, though.
All right. Well, he's in the house. If you are not aware of, we have some changes coming up to our ER, so you're going to want to stick around for that. And some big changes. So things that you're going to need to know. And as always, if you want to. Got any comments or questions, feel free to email us at podcast@westusa.com. So, Nick, just out of curiosity, podcast@westusa.com, where does it go? Because Heather's like, I don't know.
It goes to you and it goes to me.
Oh, okay. Perfect.
I think also Heather, but that's okay.
Heather said it doesn't go to her.
Well, okay. Everybody's on the podcast right now. Just fire off some emails to us. Say hi. We'll see where they go.
All right. Perfect. All right, tomorrow from 10 to 12, we got a market update for real estate professionals instructed by the Habibs. So this is a great, these guys know what they're talking about. If you're wanting to know about, the economics, especially on a national scene, and then how it permeates into Arizona. So this is going to be a Zoom. So you might want to just go ahead and email us at podcast@westusa.com or really quickly write down that Zoom link right down there. So
this is who I follow. So they got really good information on what's happening.
Do yourselves a favor. Google or ChatGPT Barry Habib. You will attend.
Well, I'm disappointed. Sure. I thought Justin followed me.
This class is on the calendar, so if you don't have the link, you can go there. Also, kudos to Mike. Permeated. Good work for you. Proud of you, buddy. Proud of you.
He's growing up.
Yeah. All right. CE class coming up. Todd Bernard's next CE class this Wednesday. This is a virtual 3 hours of fair housing. And as Nick indicated, you can just go to the dashboard, go on the calendar. And if you're not with West USA, you are more than welcome to join any of our events. All you have to do is just go to westusacalendar.com. All right, this Friday from 2 to 4 p.m., it is a monthly meetup with our managing broker, Claudia. She's going to go over and answer all your questions when it comes down to the dashboard, transaction desk, and armless. So this month, it's going to be up here at the North Phoenix office. And then, Nick, we are still offering our agents a Zillow showcase and some great training opportunities.
Yeah, we still we roll this out. We push really hard, talk about it, and then agents don't pay attention because you don't have a listing. Then all of a sudden you get a listing and everybody kind of freaks out and goes, wait, what do? I need to get going right now. I need this ASAP. And so we're just going to consistently do these trainings every single month. We do have them virtual. They're on demand. You can watch them. But if you want a live training with the guy, Sam, who we've met, he's amazing. He's awesome rep. He'll help you walk through getting your listing through the Zillow Showcase system when you're ready.
All right, so that is going to be this Wednesday from 1 to 2 p.m. All right, Todd, what is going on in our buyer's market?
While transitioning into the slides. Okay. Thanks, everybody, for joining us today. Today, we're going over the Greater Phoenix Metropolitan Housing Statistics for the week ending September 29th. Let's get right into the numbers. 77 days closed on market this past week, a 4.63 month supply. Absorption rate was at 21.58. Average list price this past week, $719,230. Average sale price this past week, $582,139. And our list price to sale price retention at 97.68. Active inventory up just a little to 25,377, pending at 3714, and closed units month to date at 5112. New listings this past week, 1,993, brings days on market for active to 119.9 and for closed at 77. Price ranges in the lower left-hand side. Obviously, the benefit is no matter what price range you're looking for, you can see exactly how many units are available, the days on market for that particular segment, and what percentage of the total inventory that segment represents. It's great to really have this because look at the days on market differences. And so you get really a good chance to see how different markets, have different attributes. That's the word I'm looking for. So yeah, that's why this is so important, everyone, that you know how to do your own market stats for your own neighborhoods and the people in which you serve, because your data is more important than my data, which is more important than the national data. So here we go. Looking at the total inventory, 0 to 600,000 is representative of 67.56 total units, percentile of the inventory. 600 to 1 million is 19.87, and $1 million and up is 12.57. So here's the spreadsheet. Everybody gets to be the expert. Why? Week over week, you can really take a good look at this. So new listings, yeah, we took 2,100. That's it. We love to be over 2,000. 2,400 is really the way to go, but we're at 1,993 this week. Active inventory. Now remember, my numbers on the left versus the numbers in the blue. The month-end numbers include Armless's number just as off the shelf, and they usually include pending and under contract in their numbers because I don't think it's a good idea for you to get your client all excited about a house that's under escrow that's going to close, and they're not, and now they're comparing everything else you're going to show them to that particular property. It's just not good salesmanship. However, if you've exhausted obviously everything in the neighborhood and they're really imperative about being right there, then obviously there's always a reason why every strategy works. It's just, not a good one for common sense. 657, so of the 25,377, 657 are in the coming soon category. 19,282 single family detached, 2,843 down just a little new home construction, 24,993, again, 98.5% of the entire MLS. That's still good. We're keeping under the 1.5% number as far as defaults concerned. 3,714 buyers in the marketplace that are in escrow right this particular moment. This is down just a little bit, but it's still significantly up in comparison to year-over-year comparisons. So that's a really good sign. We have more what does it mean? We have more buyers in the marketplace right now than we've had last year, same period. Looking at closed inventory, the big secret here is the green tag. If you look to the right where you see the closing for August, we were also in the green. In other words, that we sold more homes this year than we did last year. Right now, it looks like September being so far the 28th is through the reporting period. It looks as though this is going to hold strong and that we will end up, again, having closed more homes in September than we did last year. Why is this important? Look at the numbers. Last year, it says that this year's we're doing a little better. That's a good thing. Last year, we were going through an election cycle. We were going through all sorts of misinformation on both sides. And so we really didn't know what to believe. Was the economy better? Was it not so good? In the beginning of the year, we had some green, but then all of a sudden, we turned into the red because people were worried about how tariffs and interest rates weren't coming down and how the tariffs were going to affect, their day-to-day lifestyle. But right now, everybody is now understanding how that's happening. And as a result, everybody's more positive. Positive is usually a good thing. Brings buyers in the marketplace and it puts properties up for sale. Month supply is at 4.63. That's down just a little bit from 4.9, which is good. We're trying to get to 3 months supply. That's the secret number there. Looking at the sales prices, average sale prices, and median sale, we always like to follow the median. 400, but again, remember these numbers down here in the bottom section are dealing with just this past week's closings. This is not dealing, other than the month supply, this is not dealing with the entire MLS. This is just dealing with what has taken place last week, those properties that closed last week. So 464 and 190 versus 450. So obviously the median price went up about 15,000 based on the number of what properties that did close. Looking at active inventory, 120, it's still pretty high for the total MLS, but 77 days came down a little from 79, a little bit closer. 70 days is the sweet spot. So for 7 days up, 7 days down, you're still right there within the norm. And what this also says is, because these are MLS numbers, it's also saying that this is across the board. So the average across the board in Arizona is looking at 77. The average is 70 over the last 5 years. We're in a pretty good market, is what it's saying. Looking at list price to sale price retention, 97.68. Sellers actually retained about 0.5% more this past week in those properties that have closed. We were 97.8 is the sweet spot. So again, if we're somewhere between 97.5 and 98.1, it's probably anomalous of the week, and then next week it settles back down. So overall, we have close to 2,000 properties being added to the marketplace. We have more buyers in the market than we've ever had. You'll hear from Justin in just a moment about what's going on in the finance market. Closings, people are actually closing. To have September closings, you had to put them on a contract earlier in the month, or maybe the end of last month. So these are good signs because it shows buyers are now engaging. So that's the numbers for this week, Mike.
All right, good stuff. All right, Justin. Yeah.
Yeah, you. Hey, you.
All right.
What do you got going on today?
So obviously rates went up a little bit this last week. We saw just shy of 0.25% on the increase of interest rates from last Monday to today. So now this week we have initial jobless claims coming out and the BLS jobs report, Bureau of Labor Statistics coming out. Why is that significant? Well, the reason why the feds lowered the rate was weakness in the job market. So if we get higher numbers on initial jobless claims and we get less jobs coming out on the BLS jobs report, we're probably going to see interest rates get better. So exactly the opposite if we see the opposite. So let's hope for a little bit more weakness in the jobs market for interest rates at least. All right. So as requested last week by Mike, what can seller concessions be used for? And let's jump into this. So conventional loans, again, if you're putting down less than 10%, you're limited to 3% seller concessions, all the way up to 9% seller concessions on a primary residence if you're putting 25% down. But so what can concessions be used for? Standard closing costs and lender fees. Prepaid items, that means taxes, insurance, escrow reserves. So we're prepaying taxes. We're going to pay for the first year of homeowners insurance with seller concessions and the reserve account to make sure that we have enough in that reserve account to pay those taxes and insurance as they come due. Discount points, rate buy downs, and that also includes temporary rate buy downs, permanent rate buy downs. PMI buyout, just like we talked about a couple weeks ago, we can do the full lump sum up front. We can do a portion of it. So that's something that a lot of people don't really play with, really like looking at.
Yeah, that's a new one. That's a new one for me.
Yeah, single premium pay PMI. Yeah, it's a great one. If we got really good credit, it's always a great one to go for. A lot of people are wanting to put 20% down to get rid of that PMI. But in a lot of cases, if we can do 5% down, we got great credit and get rid of that PMI, those buyers are really happy.
A lot of times with rules of 72, no matter what you're adding to the finance balance, it's going to take about 9 years to break even. In many instances. So, if a seller's not intending on living in the house for 9 years, unless you're getting the seller to pay for it. And then again, even if they were willing to pay for it, the question is, could you use that money to somewhere 100%. Else better advantage?
Yeah, 100%. And that's what we're going to go through. So keep in mind, we're all about education. Permanent interest rate buy downs, just like we were talking about, covering the appraisal and inspection fees reimbursed at closing, less cash needed up front for your buyer. And I mean, in a lot of these cases, if we're getting a lot of these seller concessions, as a lender, I'm going to pay for the appraisal up front just so that we can get it covered by the seller concessions at the end. It makes it a little bit easier for your buyer to move forward. Strategic negotiation. It's Monday. Give me a break. I'm sorry.
Hey, wait a minute. Mike did a 4-syllable word. So.
Yeah.
Permeate.
So we're looking at all the VA loans, same thing, prepaid taxes and insurance, temporary or permanent rate buy downs, the VA funding fee. So a lot of cases, if your buyer is buying their second home with a VA loan, second time using that VA loan, 100% financing, that funding fee is 3.3% currently. So we can get that covered, and that's considered in the concessions. Paying off buyers' judgments or debts to help with loan pre-approval. So last week, Todd's question was, can you pay off a lease that's remaining? And the seller can pay off a lease with the VA seller concessions. Also, they can pay off debt in order to have them qualify to purchase a home. So and that's not limited to a car loan. That's not limited to credit cards. We're able to do it all. And those judgments are a big deal because you can't close on a home unless a judgment's paid off.
You used the term buy out, or pay off. It used to be paying off a debt totally back to zero. A revolving credit used to not be so good for your credit score.
Well,
So
in some cases, it's better to have a little bit of debt on there, but for the purposes of qualifying for it, you could pay it off and always put a little bit more back on once you close on the house. It's just really to get that debt to income ratio down to where we need it. It used to be where we had to pay off a card and close it. We don't need to do that anymore. It just needs to be paid off. So that's a big deal. Creative ways, just funding fee coverage. VA buyers often finance it. It's standard to finance it, but we can pay it off. Now, it needs to all be paid off. You can't just pay off a portion of that funding fee. It would all have to be paid off. Seller covering it lowers the loan amount and obviously the monthly payment. And 3.3%, that's a big amount. Yep. First time use is 2.3%, so still a big amount. Paying off debt. If a vet has lingering credit card or judgment blocking approval, seller concessions can eliminate that. So we can issue a pre-qualification with required seller concessions and tell the sellers, hey, this has to be paid off with seller concessions. We have to have at least this amount in order to cover this debt in order to qualify for this home.
So part of that pre-buyer, pre-conversation that we should be having with buyers that we've been talking about, Mike and I have always been talking about getting an estimated settlement sheet from a escrow service company and from the lender, really before you start showing buyers homes, because you've got to package your buyer. When you go to write that offer, that's packaging the buyer. And if you package it incorrectly, the buyer's not going to get the home. So Justin, would you recommend that, you can help them navigate that process way before they actually obviously need to use it?
100%. And I wouldn't recommend going to the settlement company just because that's a lot of work. I'd recommend talking to the lender because we're going to be able to give you an accurate estimate on what that looks like. Now, keep in mind, each individual property can be specific because you have HOAs. If you're buying in Sun City compared to in Peoria, you're going to have a lot more fees there for the HOAs. So taxes are variables. Homeowners insurance is variable. If you're buying a brand new home compared to a resale property that's 30 years old, your homeowners insurance is going to be much cheaper.
What about HOA impact fees?
Yeah, same thing. I mean, we want to make sure we know that too.
Yeah.
So there you go. FHA loans are very similar to conventional loans: closing costs, prepaid items, homeowners insurance, discount points, and the rate buy downs. HOA prepaid upfront, interest rate buy downs that includes temporary and permanent buy downs. Builder incentives as well, covering upgrades, but that's something that's on the builder side of things that you're not going to get that with resale properties. Again, creative strategic uses there: 2-1 buy downs, 3-2-1 buy downs, and you got 6% on FHA loans. So no matter what the down payment is, 6%. It's incredible what you can do on an FHA loan. So there you go. That's what you got. If you have any more questions, I know that's a loaded subject. Don't hesitate to reach out to us, even if we're doing your transaction or not. We're here to help you.
Yeah, this is good stuff. And Justin, you and we're always on the phone and strategizing, with each client. But it's also now becomes instead of just saying, hey, you got really good credit, let's just maybe automatically go with a conventional. If I'm looking at 3% in concessions on a conventional, but 6% on an FHA, my client qualifies for both.
Yeah.
That could change
It
things.
can go a long way with that 6%. And traditionally, FHA rates are much lower. So looking at that and considering how much that FHA mortgage insurance is, we can weigh out the options. Yeah.
All right, Justin, good stuff. Appreciate
Yeah,
it, my
thank you,
man.
guys.
All right, let's get into the 3-pack. I think I mentioned last week. I don't remember. I don't even know if we were here last week. Felt like we had a holiday not too long ago.
We were here last week.
We were here last week. All right. All right. So a couple weeks ago, it had been a while. I had to dust off the cobwebs, and I held myself an open house. And
crushed it.
Boy, I completely didn't put the right title on here. So before they signed the BBA, that's just a placeholder. So this is my HOA tips. So some of these are going to be a little bit of review. So if you're new, that's great. And then I'm going to get into some stuff that you may not have thought of. And at our open houses, I mean, we have all kinds of different pieces of collateral there and different, strategies there, whether it's, getting ready to send them our mobile app to collect name, phone number, and email, and so forth. And some agents may disagree with me or not on this, but even if I'm holding an open house and I'm solo and somebody walks into that open house and they don't like the house, but they are interested in other houses in the neighborhood, I'm ready to go.
Yep.
And so so one of the things that I do before an open house, I take a look at the neighborhood. I take a look at other similar listings. If mine's 1,800 square feet and there's a 5,200 square feet house in that neighborhood that may not be on my list. And so I print these out. I either print them out or have that search opened up on my laptop when people walk in. So as they're walking through the house and we're having that conversation, what do you like about this one? What do you wish this one had that it didn't, and so forth. We can go through the other things that are in the neighborhood. But then you also have to do a little bit of homework, because for me, I'm okay. I'll shut down that open house for 20, 30 minutes, put a, always love those signs, be back in 15 minutes. I never know what that quite means. When did the 15 minutes start, or whatever the case is. But I would rather do that and take somebody out and looking at homes. So you got to kind of know which ones are easy to show, and do that homework ahead of time, and maybe make those arrangements. So again, don't hesitate to temporarily close. Oh, can't spell that word either. Close your open house and show. But of course, now have a buyer-broker exclusive agreement ready in place, or at the very least, a buyer-broker showing agreement ready to go. If these people are ready to walk out that door and go look at another home, you've got to have one of these documents in place, and then just go and show the house.
If you were going on a listing appointment, what would you do? You drive the neighborhood, you drive the four corners, you want to know exactly what all the amenities are in there before you go knock on the door and do your presentation. And one of those things is verifying whether there's for sale by owners in the marketplace. Well, when you're a buyer, you have similarities, let me rephrase that. When you're holding an open house, there are similarities there. You should also be prepared to know all the FSBOs, all of the properties that are in the neighborhood that might be a like property to the one that you're showing, not that you can't have all of them. And what you do basically is you talk to the homeowners, you talk to the listing agents, homeowners on a FSBO, listing agents, and you get them prepared that you might just need an immediate showing. Hey, listen, I'm holding an open house in your neighborhood. I just want to let you know that if a buyer comes in here that might have an interest in your home, do you want me to show it? They're going to go, well, hell yeah. And you go, okay, great. Then I'm going to need to potentially have the availability be 15 minutes. Mm-hmm. So it's really a great thing to do. The rest of the things, I'm 110% on board. You got to be ready to write that buyer broker to show property. But you have to also, and I don't know where we're going with 2 and 3, so let's just say we'll move on. Nick, what do you got?
Intentionality. It's the number one thing that we need to do with our business, and it's the number one thing that most agents don't do, and then they get frustrated because no one's walking through their open houses, or open houses are quote-unquote waste of time. If you're doing it with intention, you're communicating with those listing agents that are around your open house, and you're set up for success because, you're not lucky. You've done the work. You've put the time in. You spent a half an hour preparing for the open house. You're going to be able to win that. And I mean, Mike's talking about this today because Mike and Ryan did this open house, and they had 2 wins doing their open house because they were intentional on what they were doing.
And I got another round of open houses this weekend.
For sure.
So I'm pretty excited about that. It's kind of fun when you haven't done it so long.
Well, and you're doing it right, it is fun. Yeah. When you're sitting alone in a house and no one's walking through it and you have no conversations, it's a bummer.
That's why my salutation says, live life on purpose. Don't do it if it isn't going to give you a return.
All right. The whole intention, obviously, or at the very least, do not let anybody leave the open house without getting their contact information. If you are letting people come and go without sharing their information, the only thing that you're eligible for is a Martha Stewart Award. You're just an event planner. To me, there's no point. You can give them business cards, you can give them open house flyers, and so forth. But as we've talked about this so many times, nobody's going to save that stuff, and nobody's going to call you. So Wise Agent, which is the CRM system, Nick, that we highlight here at West USA, have got these great landing pages that you can set up specifically per open house. And so what we did is we went in, created our landing page, and all the landing page was just name, phone number, email, maybe a couple questions. And then I got my QR code for it, and then put the QR code on a couple pieces of paper, and then Nick hit the laminating machine. And so once they scan that QR code, it opens up the landing page, they put in their information, and you get alerted immediately. And now all of that information is in your CRM system. And what you can also do is then set that up. Then once that information gets there, it's tagged or sourced as open house. And so Wise Agent in your CRM system knows Nick, to automatically create now that email campaign.
Well, you can create an email, you can create a text, and that sounds complicated. It sounds time consuming. It takes minutes to go in and build a open house landing page, especially if you're going to use Wise Agent. And like Mike said, you're getting notified. They're on a drip now with you, and you are walking away from that open house with people to talk to.
And I would also say, you can always call Wise Agent. They'll run you through it, but sure. I figured it out myself. So
hit the bell, Mikey. Hit the bell. Look at you.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, just and even the auto reply feature. It promotes communication.
Yeah.
So Todd, your opinion. So I know a lot of people go back and forth on this. Is do you have somebody fill out the information once they walk in, or do you allow the conversation and the tour to happen and then have them fill it out on the way out? And for me personally, I think it's case by case. I don't like when somebody walks in and I'm like, oh man, you got to sign up right now. I feel like I'm selling cars or something like that. But if I've had a good enough conversation, then we didn't have any problem.
Yeah, you have to earn it. I think when people first walk in the door, the more things you require them to do, the more obstacles you're putting in your way of success.
All right, and then this is my favorite, and we talked about it a little bit a couple weeks ago, but what rate do you want? This is the conversation that I've had, and this is why we were so successful in getting people's contact information. Remember that buyers are still concerned about rates. And so in Justin, we're constantly having conversations about different rate down programs and costs involved and so forth. So I'm very well aware of what options and how much it might cost and what I might need in seller concessions. See if your lender has any collateral to be able to hand out about rate buy downs. But when people come in, that's the discussion that they're having, and they just kind of get into, rates are high, da-da-da-da. Okay, what rate do you want? What's that magic number? Do you want a 5.75? I'm pretty sure I can get you a 5.75. They're like, what are you talking about? And then we go through our whole negotiating strategies. And so now at the very least, what I've done is I've overcome that initial challenge of, listen, just because the rate sheet says 6.25 or whatever it says, that doesn't mean that has to be your rate, but the average buyer thinks that's kind of like when I go into new builds and I'm looking at spec homes and I see the prices. To me, those prices are just a suggestion. It's a starting point.
Well, certainly on inventory property, that's true. I think the big thing right here is, first of all, if you're not used to holding an open house and getting more than one person walking through, you need to start off a little differently. This isn't about how to market an open house, but the reality is reach out to your lender, reach out to your escrow service company. They can provide you with emails of the top 200 homes or emails of 200 homes around that area. Invite people to the open house. In other words, if you're just going to go and expect nothing, well, then why are you holding the open house? The other piece is, Mike, to your point, sometimes people don't like open houses because they're fear-based and they think that they're dangerous. And although I'm not going to disagree with the fact that bad things can happen, if you have more than one person, you don't have to necessarily close your listing. What you could do is you could have somebody there that's a newer agent looking for buyers, and either leave them at the open house, or you can recommend to them that there's a referral fee for anybody that is generated by your listing, and if they go out and sell it. So in other words, you're still providing immediate service. You're just not having necessarily to do it all by yourself.
Well, Kyle Fouts offers a service for $25 an hour. He'll hang out at your open house and he'll be your Guido.
Choice, yeah.
But yeah, Nick, that's also the other thing is, what is that magic number?
Yeah.
Okay, what if?
Yeah.
Just what if we go out and find a house, and then I know you're going to go to another open house, and I know you're going to talk to another agent. Do me a favor. When you go through the tour and they don't talk about rates and they don't talk about negotiations and rate buy downs, promise me you'll give me a chance.
And I think it reinforces you being the expert in the industry, being able to have that conversation off the cuff, providing that additional information. Most buyers that are walking through open houses, they may have thought about a rate, but they might just be looky-loos. And as you start to qualify them, get them more interested, that's a question that they're going to have at some point. Well, you know what? I was walking that open house and Mike actually talked to me about it. He said we could get lower than what's being marketed. Maybe I should give him a call. And as the market transitions and turns and does whatever it's going to do, that question to engage that buyer that's coming through the door, if you're able to point them to the thing that you can talk about in that moment, that just helps the conversation turn. So as you've spoken to your lender throughout the week, you know what rates are at, you know what your lender can do to help, you've got that information in your back pocket, you know how to guide that conversation for that buyer.
And I even got one of those blow-up wavy dudes.
They
just
kind of
I got one of those in my open house.
Can I get a video of you and Gerda standing outside the open house with the inflatable thing, dancing with it?
Well, I got ideas. Okay. All righty. Well, appreciate everybody. All right, that is our 3-pack. And before we bring in our designated broker, just want to welcome Mike Barr to our studio. He is our studio audience member. So, welcome. He gets a nice black West USA hat. And so if you ever want to sit into one of our podcasts and listen to us and see what we do, you can just go ahead and email us at podcast@westusa.com and maybe
we'll
Heather will find the email. I don't know. All right, Duane, welcome.
Drum roll.
Thank you. Hey, I'm happy to be here.
All right.
Welcome back.
So we got some ER changes. So so we bumped some important people just to have you on today.
Are you kidding me?
No, we didn't have anyone scheduled, so it worked out perfect.
Perfect. I like that. That's the way it should be.
All right. So any kind of introduction before we kind of get into some of these changes up here, or do you want to just jump into it?
Well, no, let's talk about kind of where some of this came from. This came actually from NAR, right? And some of the required changes with the it kind of surfaced from these private listing deals that there's some of the brokerages across the big brokerages, for example, are promoting, right? And so NAR had to make some policy decisions around how to handle that.
So then what they were doing, they were a big enough brokerage, and they pretty much, you could call them pocket listings, I guess, if you wanted to.
Yeah.
And they kept all the listings in-house, and if a consumer wanted to see the listings, they would have to be on their website.
That's correct.
Agents would have to go to their website rather than relying on the MLS.
Right. Yeah. It's a private listing network where it doesn't get outside their own brokerage. And so that has stirred some controversy in the marketplace across the country. And so NAR had to deal with that. And that's where some of this stuff came from. In fact, all of it came from. And so NAR could deal with those networks and so forth. So,
right,
yeah.
which, and then for me, for my personal opinion, it never made sense to me because I get the broker's perspective. One side of the transaction is less than two sides of the transaction, right? And I understand that. But for me, always, it's just I have a fiduciary responsibility to my seller. And my job is to ensure that that listing gets seen by as many eyes as possible, regardless of that next handbag my wife wants.
And I agree with you. I think the maximum exposure of anything you're selling, I don't care whether it's your home or whether it's your car, whatever it is, the more exposure you can get to it, to the marketplace, the better results that you're going to get out of that. But there are other people that have different opinions of that, and so we're having to deal with that from our document standpoint. So yeah.
All right, so let's jump into this one.
Yeah. So this is the exclusive right to sell document. This is the one that is going to be changing. In fact, it has changed. It is in transaction desk for the AR MLS library. First of all, let's talk about the different MLSs in the state, right?
Okay.
There are 10 different MLSs, I believe, in the state, and not all of them are adopting the statewide AAR listing document. I know, for example, that the White Mountains is still going through some of their processes to whether or not to adopt all these changes or not. AAR has put this out, and each MLS has their own time frame of when they can put it out, up to actually tomorrow, September 30th. They have to make the decision by.
Time's over.
Right? Yeah. So this is the one that AR MLS has put out. It's kind of interesting how they did this, because you'll notice in the red line version here, lines 172 to 175 have been added, and then the lines 163 through 167 has been deleted and some verbiage added. What's interesting, if you look at line 172 to 175, that is a election by the owner now. This is going to be something that every listing agent that's in the AR MLS marketplace is going to have to address with their client. Basically, it's called a delayed listing or owner's choice of marketing. It's very similar. Think of it as your coming soon. For AR MLS, we had all of these changes already in place for months, and so we didn't have to make any policy changes really within AR MLS. But now the owner has that written decision to make on every listing. Owner does or does not authorize a listing broker to immediately market the premises to the general public. If they check does, which is what most owners are going to want, right, then nothing additional has to happen.
Okay, so then let me ask you this. So if my listing is coming soon and I'm putting it into the MLS as coming soon, what boxes is that considered immediately marketing the premises broadly to the general public or not?
That's called delayed marketing.
Okay.
Okay, and that means that they will have to check the does not, because if you know what coming soon does in the AR MLS ecosystem, it does not get syndicated out.
So is coming soon still a status inside AR
Yes,
MLS?
it will
There's
be.
just an additional checkbox and then documents that need to be
Correct.
filled out by the seller.
And the work group that worked on this, they did that because they wanted to draw focus to that owner in that decision-making process. And they decided to have a separate form. You'll see there as the verbiage continues that the listing broker and the owner will complete the AAR owner's delayed and or limited marketing election addendum.
Well, I think the other situation where this becomes incredibly convenient for me personally is, we go on a listing appointment and they're they're ready to sign, but they're not ready to put their house on the market or do
Correct.
anything. And instead of saying, hey, let's wait for your house to get ready in 3 months and I'll come back around with the listing agreement to sign, I would rather have them sign it right then. And then we currently just have language that we put in the additional comment section, which is probably can go away now. Because a lot of bad things can happen in those 3 months, and I'd rather control the contract and wait until then my seller is ready to put the house on the market.
So there's a couple of controls in that, though. First is the commencement date. So you could take a listing today that doesn't have that has a commencement date. Let me rephrase that. You could sign your listing contract today with a commencement date that your listing doesn't begin until a certain particular day in the future. But Mike, to your particular point, sellers, I always say to my sellers this. In other words, while you're getting your home ready, if I was to receive a full price offer on your home, you don't want to sell it. And they usually look at you like, wait a minute, no, I'll take that offer. So you want me to begin marketing your home immediately. This box allows us to not broadly. The key word on line 173 is the word broadly.
Correct.
Because, that's really what we're discussing.
Correct. But you will have to now, when you go into a coming soon status, check the box does not on this paragraph and complete the next form that we're going to talk about, which is that delayed marketing.
Before we go to the
document.
next form, just to remind everyone that has templates set up in Transaction Desk, you will need to go in and update those templates. And if you're not sure how to do that, Claudia does a Transaction Desk class coming up this week. We've had a lot of agents that have already gotten...
Well played.
Look at me. Already gotten notifications from West USA that says you've used the old ER, we need the new one. And they say, well, I don't know how to do that. It's because your templates are locked in.
Duane, do we have any obligation to go to clients that we already have listing and contracts with and modify the conversation?
No, not as of today, not today.
Okay.
After tomorrow, the answer is going to be yes.
So then the new ER is in Transaction Desk right
It is
now.
in Transaction Desk, and people are using it, which is fine. The problem is that owners a delayed limited form is not in there yet.
Yeah.
So if they check the box does not, and they're looking for this form that we're going to talk about next, they can't find it. So you got to reach out to us as a broker team. We'll get it to you.
Or your broker for your brokerage.
Right. Yeah. I would assume that that's going to be uploaded probably today, so that everybody will have access to it. But yeah. The other thing I want to make sure of is, to your point, the commencement date of that listing. When does a broker have to have that uploaded to a dashboard and to reviewed?
Within 5 days
Within 5 days of when?
of when the seller signs.
Of when the seller signs, and that's a key point. Even though you signed today, but you're not going to start that listing until, let's say, the middle of October.
That's why Dean calls me for all his broker questions.
No.
Okay, but that's one of the things that we do see happening. Sometimes agents don't understand that once that owner signs that listing agreement, you got 5 days to get it into our dashboard. So, yep. Okay, this is a new form. This is one that was developed based on the changes that NAR brought forward on the delayed marketing and the owner's decisions as to how to do it. It's a pretty simple and straightforward form. There's also the idea that we'll get into, but if you get down here to line 21, where it's a limited marketing, which is office exclusive, those are still available out there. It's where you can market it only within your brokerage. But at the end of the day, this is a pretty easy form to fill out, to understand, but it is supposed to trigger your conversation with the client as to what it means if they're going to go into a delayed marketing thing. It does, up there on lines 8 through 10, it does talk about what some of the consequences of delayed marketing are. You could take longer to sell, you could get fewer offers, you could get a lower price, the premises may not be displayed on some of the well-known sites and so forth. And so just know that you're going to get some of these conversations with your owners that you maybe didn't have in the past. You just advised them to take a delayed listing or coming soon listing, and they didn't really understand what that meant. Now they're going to be questioning you if they read these documents and understand it. So, yeah, it's a...
Well, so going to 2122, that just kind of seems like the initial conversation we had about pocket listings and brokerages trying to keep everything in-house. At West USA, are we permitted to check box 21? And if so, when would be a situation that that would behoove us?
Well, like we talked earlier, I don't necessarily think that is a best strategy for an owner or an agent to recommend, but there are situations where sellers really don't want it exposed to the marketplace fully. Maybe you've got a high-profile client who wants their anonymity as best they can when you're marketing or selling it. Maybe you've got a difficult family scenario where you've got a divorce going on, or you've got a trust that's in dispute, or who knows what the issue is. But that limited limited marketing basically allows you to market it within your office. You can also market it to brokers within your sphere, so other agents, you can market it there. You just can't put it out on social media. You can't put it into the MLS and so forth. So,
Well, it'll be in the MLS. It just won't go out. It won't be syndicated, correct?
well, that's a coming soon status.
Okay.
Right. And limited marketing, as I understand it, is often exclusives, and Armless is not going to collect those, is from what I understand at this point.
Now, isn't in the MLS, and I'm asking because we have a great transaction coordinator, so I haven't inputted anything to the MLS in years. But don't I have the option to put something to the MLS, but check some boxes not to syndicate it to anywhere?
Yes, yeah, I think you do that too. Yeah, and I haven't put anything in there in a long time either, so I don't know 100% either. But yeah, I think there is those opposites.
So then, if that were the case, then Nick, I could check 21, put it in the MLS, and just don't syndicate it anywhere.
Yeah,
Correct.
but here's what people are also hearing. You know, originally this came out of the, you know, Duane's case, the multi-million-dollar properties, the exclusive properties, the, you know, that the people, you know, the Michael Jordans don't want just the average person walking through their home pretending they have a client just to see how Michael Jordan lives. But the thing is that you hear the key words here on line 22 is will not be marketed at all to the general public. So in other words, you can't send it to your database. You can't, you know, put it on social media. You know, what good does it do? Well, again, there are certain circumstances where it probably would make sense. But what good is it if you don't tell any consumer that it's available for sale?
And sometimes, you know, you're handed a buyer by the owner, right? So the owner comes up and says, "Hey, Nick wants to buy my home. Can you facilitate the transaction?" Well, you could do
But
a
not
limited,
market it.
right? Yeah, and so you could do something like that.
Some of the things that we're seeing out there, and you know, agents send this stuff to us, is I've called them the syndication wars that we're seeing happen online.
Yep.
The couple of I mean, Homes.com has been very, very outspoken against what Zillow is doing, not taking sides one way or the other. But what I will say is that the materials that are being put out are very confusing to a lot of
Yes.
agents. At the end of the day, what Zillow is saying is that listings should be in the MLS. That's what they're saying. And their policies are directed around that. If there's any confusion, we have reps at both companies, Homes.com and Zillow. They're fantastic people on both sides. If you have any questions and you want some clarification, let us know. But we're having conversations with them consistently, and that's the end of the day. That's the goal. Every listing should be in the MLS, but we understand at West USA, and so does the syndication companies, that there are reasons that they shouldn't be. There are some brokerages in the nation that are very, very loud about how they think that should be the opposite. Listings shouldn't be in the MLS.
Zillow's perspective is every listing should be in the MLS?
Zillow thinks that there are very small situations that a listing would not be.
And that would be the people to go directly to Zillow and put their house up.
Well, so that's where the fight has been. Is that those that
I'm
don't
just playing the devil's advocate here. They want the cake and eat it too.
No, so you're not allowed to anymore at Zillow. Unless you're the owner of the property, you cannot put a listing in.
I understand that.
That was what the fight was, is that these bigger brokerages didn't want it to be in the MLS, but they still wanted to put it in Zillow. They didn't want to give it to agents. They wanted to syndicate it to the public.
Yep.
And so they were going around some of the policies that were put out there.
And you know, the funny thing is, how often do you hear the word Realtor.com in any of these arguments? But yet, Realtor.com is very similar to Zillow.
Yeah.
You know, we all believe that every property's best and highest price in the shortest period of time is generated by as much exposure as you can possibly provide.
And that's where the fight is. The fight is the companies that have the most eyeballs. Realtor.com has just kind of fallen off the last few years. They don't have very many eyeballs.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else you want to highlight, or anything else we should know about this?
How many days is a delayed marketing coming soon status allowed?
30.
Is it still 30?
Well, that varies by MLS.
Okay.
So you have to know what MLS that property.
White Mountains is way different.
Yes.
And then what I learned about White Mountains is you can't even show the property. Like you can't, during coming soon, another agent can't go and take a look at the property.
No. Yeah. They each have their own policies around the coming soon, and some of them are very strict the way they interpret it. So, yeah.
Yeah, so go to armless.com. Don't go to Flex. Go to armless.com. And in the upper right-hand side, you'll see the little section there that talks about rules and regulations. Click on that and familiarize yourself with exactly what Armis says.
Right.
Might be a good idea.
Yeah, that always helps. But just know that this change has to be implemented by all MLSs that don't opt out of it. And I understand that some MLSs are going to opt out of that, which I think is
So just to clarify,
problematic.
we're required with this new policy starting tomorrow. Was that what I heard?
Yes.
You'll start to
September
see,
10th.
if you're an agent of West USA, you'll start to see the requirement being added. It started on Friday afternoon. So we're going to start adding the requirement to ERs that are not the newest one. Again, it's just an FYI. We're making sure that our agents are using the most updated version of the ER. So if you do see it, we're not asking you to go backwards. Tomorrow, we might.
Yeah. And if you have copies, like Nick said earlier, in your dashboard or even in your car, you printed them, whatever the deal may be, you cannot use the old AAR contract after tomorrow. Is that correct?
The old listing
contract?
the old listing
Right.
form.
Oh, that's going to be a nightmare for you guys.
Tell me about it.
All right. Well,
we went through this back August in 24, and so we know. Yeah.
All right, and I would just say, if you do have any additional questions about the new ER and the changes and delayed status, probably of all the brokers on our team, Kyle Fouts is probably the most well-versed in this. So I would reach out and give him a call.
Yeah. Any one of
that
us
to-
will be able to answer that.
Was that to make up for the earlier comment? Just wondering.
All right, anything else you got on your agenda? We got some time.
We've got a little bit of time, and yes, there is.
Oh, you're looking at me. Oh, boy, what did I do?
The do not call list.
Yes.
We've talked about that before, but this is getting ramped up, and it is something that we as a company are digging into much deeper. We've now had our second agent become involved in a claim for soliciting business to a member of the public who is on the do not call list. It gets very expensive very quickly, individually as well as a company. And so we are working diligently with our attorneys right now to come up with strategies and also policies that will dictate how some of our agents can work within the DNC requirements and not get themselves or us into a problem.
So let me ask you, let's go to open houses real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, going back to the Wise Agent landing page, I believe it has a cool little disclaimer on there, so that if you're filling this out, the disclaimer's there. You're giving permission for me to call you
to
or whatever
reach
the
out,
case
yeah.
is. But let's say I'm doing an open house and I don't have that kind of disclaimer, but people come into the open house, fill out something. Do I still need to run that through the do not call
Your
registry?
safe harbor is going to be yes. Run it through the DNC list, and because there is a not clarity in my mind as to whether or not that's going to be required. Did they really give you permission to contact them, or did they just sign up to?
Well, if they took one of my cookies, they're giving me permission.
Well, that's your position, but I'm not sure a judge is going to buy that or not.
And I would also say for a lot of us, we're getting data from our title companies, and we're getting data from other sources.
Absolutely.
Every time I get a list, or if it's something new, I'm verifying with them. And I have an email chain because I'm verifying it via email. Has these numbers been run through the do not call list, so that in the event something does happen, I'm pointing the finger.
That isn't going to help you much.
Well, help me though. Got me out of trouble already once.
It'll help you spend that time in the 10 by 10.
I'm too pretty for
In
prison.
reality, anytime you get a list from any place, and in fact, the latest situation we're involved in right now, that's exactly what happened. It came from a third party, that phone number, and it turns out that this plaintiff is a serial plaintiff. They are baiting agents to call in,
Call. Yeah.
and then they file these complaints. And there are people out there that make a living doing that. Although they're few, when they do hit, it's problematic. So yeah, anytime you get a list from any third party, run it before you make contact with them. Run it through the DNC, do not call list.
So Duane, let me ask you this. What's the difference between a list that's provided to somebody and a referral that's provided through a third party.
No difference from that from the perspective of the
So
donor.
I have a seller, a friend, a past client, a brother, sister, cousin, relative, and they tell me, "Hey, Todd, I met this person. Their name's this. Here's their phone number." They said to me, I told them you were in real estate, and they said to me to have you contact them. My job, before I can dial that number that came as a referral, is I will have to go to the DNC and the IDNC to be able to verify that that number's on there. Technically,
That is correct.
Yeah.
Yes. The other aspect of this whole thing is the rules require the company to have its own internal do not call list. So you as an agent, if you are soliciting and you're doing it by the book for and a consumer you reach to says, "Do not call me again," now what are you going to do? It's not just you, Mike. It's the whole company. So nobody from our company. So we as a brokerage are in the process of ramping up our internal do not call list and a way for you as a practitioner to check not only the federal do not call list, but you're going to have to check the internal do not call list as well before you make that contact. So this is going to really put some damper on how folks.
Well, all I know is West USA is going to owe me. I am on the federal do not call list, and Nick calls me all the time.
You've
and,
engaged with us as a business, and you've given us permission to contact you.
Not you.
Yeah.
You've given the company.
Oh, man.
Well, I guess he just
You
told
call me
he
from your
just
cell
said-
phone. You don't call me from the corporate number.
So that means you can't call the brokers anymore, though.
So let me dial this in a little. So again, as we're dealing with past clientele of West USA or any brokerage, so when you're, maybe a sale maybe a listing canceled, and you think, well, it showed that they were interested at one time, so I'm going to call them. That's a no unless you've washed it through DNC and IDNC. If it's the word expired that so many people love, well, that's a no-no through DNC, IDNC. So realistically, when you start, but here's the thing that isn't. You go to the door and you knock on it, and as long as there's no solicitation sign on that door, knock away, have any conversation you want. And then the jury is still out as to whether or not texting falls under this or not. So in essence, just call it 50-50 right now. So if you think you're getting away from it, if you have anything, and of course, auto dialers, systems that automate sending out information to the consumer, like CRMs, a whole new world of coming to Duane.
Yeah, no doubt. And auto dialers is a big one. Anybody within West USA that's using an auto dialer, please stop now.
Immediately.
All right.
Stop now.
Last question. Just to clarify, one of our agents sent a message in going back to delayed status.
Okay.
So I'm listing your house, and we are going to do coming soon. I am checking the delayed status on
That's
that.
correct. Yes.
Okay, and filling out the delayed status form.
That
Okay,
is correct.
But
Yep.
inside Armless, the status is still called
Coming soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
And I suspect it will remain, those MLSs that offer coming soon, it will remain as a coming soon. Delayed status is an NAR terminology.
All right.
Yep.
All right, Duane, thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Duane.
Mike.
Thanks.
Thanks for
Thanks,
joining
Michael.
us.
Appreciate
And
you being here.
we leave everybody with the quote of the day. Confidence is contagious. Believe in your value, and others will too. Appreciate you joining us, and go out and sell a home.